Okay, this is the video for the first speaker of the proposition. You should have this piece of paper handy. This is in the description below the video, or I have already given it to you if I saw you in person. We're going to be referencing this as we do our argument. I'm going to show you what the main roles are of the first speaker of the proposition, and then I'm going to give you a sample argument. So first of all, the first speaker of the proposition is also referred to as the Prime Minister because the debate is based on the British parliamentary system. So therefore, the leader of the government in Britain is the Prime Minister. In your country, you might have a president. In South Korea, you have a president, and America has a president. Canada has a Prime Minister. But basically the same roles. However, the debate system is a little bit different. Okay. So, what are the main roles of the first speaker of the proposition? Well, the first thing you must do is you must tell us what the topic is. You can do this by stating some facts about the topic. You just gently sort of introducing the topic in a non-aggressive way. And then you're going to tell us what the motion is and define the motion if you must. So what this means is that if there's a sort of a special circumstance in the motion, like if you want to allow child labor, then you might say from what age the child can work from. Or if you're talking about, like we are PEDs, then you might discuss whether or not PEDs should be used by professional athletes or professional and amateur athletes. So you need to define the motion and make it very narrow. If it's too wide, then the opposition team can disagree with it quite easily. The second part we're going to do is we're going to outline some of the main issues and the status quo. So why are we arguing about this? Why is this an issue? And then what is the status quo? What is happening these days with this topic? Further, you're going to introduce your argument. You're going to show us why you think this motion must pass. These are your three main points. And then you're going to argue your first and second main points, plus you're going to use some preemptive arguments in your debate. You're going to sort of guess what the other team is going to say, in this case the opposition, and you're going to argue against their possible main points. Again, when you do this, you don't want to overreach. You can actually help the other team if you give them clues to some main points that they might not know about. So when you do these preemptive attacks, you say they might try to say this, make sure that they're probably going to use those main points because you don't want to help them. You don't want to give them any extra information or ammunition. Okay, so aside from that, I'm going to show you what we'll be arguing. So the first speaker of the proposition is going to argue the first two main points. There are no rebuttals, and all you have to do is these first two. And we'll talk more about rebuttals as we get into the first speaker of the opposition and the other speakers of the proposition and opposition. So please have this handy so you can reference it. Today our topic is PEDs in sports, and I will begin now. Mr. and Madam Speaker, these days professional sports is big business. People make a lot of money, both the owners and the athletes. And they make a lot of money because there's a high demand for watching people play. Now, one of the main issues with professional sports these days is PEDs, or performance-enhancing drugs. And today we're going to argue that we should allow performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports, not amateur sports, not the Olympics, but in professional sports. Now, some of the main issues, obviously, in this debate are going to be health, safety, entertainment value, and money. We're also going to show that these days it's not okay to use performance-enhancing drugs, but a lot of people do to great detriment to their health. And we're going to explain why, if we regulate it and allow it, it will not be as bad as it is now. We're going to argue that we should allow performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports for three main reasons. First of all, it has great entertainment value. Secondly, we can make it healthy if it's regulated. And third, drug testing does not work. It has not worked and it will not work. First speaker, myself, will cover main points 1 and 2, and the second speaker will cover main point 3. So first of all, Mr. Madam Speaker, entertainment value is increased if we allow PED use. There's a big difference between amateur sports and pro sports. When we look at amateur sports, usually the athletes are not quite as good as professional athletes, and drug use is highly restricted. They can't make money either, so it's a very different world. So we're not touching amateur sports. We're saying professional sports should be allowed to use PEDs. Now, why should they be able to? Because people want to see extraordinary things. They want to see extraordinary athletes do extraordinary things. And if we allow PEDs, people can run faster, jump higher. They can do all these things that we want to see. And further to this is that competition increases between the teams. If you have sort of people at their peak, their absolute physical peak, and they're battling with each other, there's really very little difference between the athletes. So competition is much, much better. And we can actually give a better show to the audience. And furthermore, when we look at records in sports, records can be chased and broken, and people love to see records broken. That's why records are there. You say, oh, this guy scored this many goals in the National Hockey League. Everyone these days is chasing Wayne Gretzky. And doing that makes people excited, right? Watching people get closer and closer and closer excites people a lot. So we really want the fans to benefit from PED use. And we're not just worried about the fans, obviously. We also want the professional athletes to be able to do the best they can. Now, for example, if you look at Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa, these were two of the biggest names in baseball in 1998. Why? Because they were hitting home runs like crazy. They were hitting home runs, they were smashing records, and they were going toe to toe, back and forth, back and forth. How are they doing this? PEDs. These guys were huge. They had used performance-enhancing drugs. Everyone knew they had used performance-enhancing drugs. And did people care? Absolutely not. They wanted to see this. They loved it. People were tuning into baseball. They didn't even watch baseball, right? They loved it. And, there were historic viewer numbers at that time. And MLB gained a lot of new fans, right? They increased their fan base and people wanted to see it. So from this example, we can show that people do not really care about PED use in professional sports. And in fact, many people want to see it. Now for our second main point, we're going to argue that it's healthy if it's regulated. If it's unregulated, it's completely dangerous. Athletes are not scientists. They're not doctors generally. And they don't know what they're putting in their bodies, right? They don't know what kind of drugs they're putting in their bodies and how much they should take and how much they shouldn't take. And the people who are giving them the drugs don't care about them. So they're going to tell, oh, take more, because they want to sell more, right? So we need to regulate it to protect the athletes because people are going to do this whether or not we allow it. And if it's regulated, doctors can advise and control the amounts that the athletes are using. And they can recommend what they should be using for their body and for how it works. And furthermore, to this point is that doctors can monitor the athletes. They can give them the PEDs and then monitor how it's affecting their bodies. So if there's any negative effects, they can stop it right away. And this is great, obviously, for the professional athletes who are already taking PEDs and the fact that they can take it safely. And if they're used properly and safely, there's no issue, right? Testosterone therapy is used in healthy individuals all the time, right? And we're just saying that if we use it responsibly and doctors tell us what to do, there's no problem with professional athletes taking these drugs. For example, a good example of an unregulated PED user was Lyle Elzado. He was an NFL linebacker, and he played in the NFL for probably 10 or 15 years. He's very good at his job, but he took PEDs because he wanted to be the best and because he wanted to make money, and that was his job. And what happened to him? Well, he died when he was 43 from brain cancer due to taking too many PEDs, taking them without the help of a doctor, taking them by himself, not knowing what they could do. So his life could have been saved if he had had someone helping him. So if we regulate PED use, because it's going to happen anyway, if we regulate it, doctors can help. Now the opposition team is probably going to try to argue that it's unsafe at any level. Well, this is wrong, right? All we're doing is we're increasing certain levels to make people better at what they do, right? They might also try to argue that people don't want to see it, but that is false, right? People want to see this. This has been proven in the past. The only time people don't want to see PED use is when people are doing it in an illegal way, right? People don't like cheaters.
So if we take off the cheating, right, people will be totally for this and they'll want to see it. So clearly, Mr. Madam Speaker, for these two reasons, we must allow PED use in professional sports as long as it's regulated by doctors, because that's what people want to see. Okay, so this was the initial speaker of this debate. The next video is going to focus on the opposition first speaker. If you'd like to watch that, please do. And yes, if you have any questions, you can leave them down below, or you can ask me in person when you see me.